Pikesville straight rye whiskey, 110 proof. That is what we're going to be consuming on a Monday night in some of the first days of March, or rather first days of spring, late March 2026. I saw a story that genuinely kind of upset your boy, and I don't really get too upset over stories that involve other countries, but this is one of those ones that made your boy sit back and really think like, what the heck do we have going on when it comes to some of the conflicts that we got going on overseas? Gotta light it up real quick. Let's toast it and hit it with a match. But first, let's toast it real quick, man. I don't know. Literally my last match in this box, so I gotta make this one count. Apparently, the Gulf states of which I did a video earlier, when reportedly the president was thinking about asking the Gulf states to pay for the war in Iran. And that just didn't make a lot of sense to me, because I couldn't see any indicators where they asked for the war in Iran. Now, they have more indicators than we do. CIA, double secret squirrels, all sort of information that lets us know more information than we could ever know. But I couldn't figure out, why would we even inquire about the Gulf states paying for a war that they're mostly not participating in? Then I see a story break from multiple news outlets that says that Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the Bahrain, like, it seems like every Gulf state, every Arab state is pushing for the United States to go in with a ground force, enforce regime change in Iran, plus any other objectives that we don't even know about. Do they want us to go take the uranium? I don't know. Do they want us to go kick the tires and make sure that the country's still working? I don't know. Do they want us to go take that oil, baby? I don't know. But imagine being told by other countries who won't have a dog in the fight, as in men or women, but these are Arab countries, so for the most part, men serving their military. And although they do have civilian infrastructure which is being beaten and battered, I will keep it real there. But the blood aspect, the casualty aspect, a lot of that would come from us. Once again, seemingly the world police. That genuinely pissed me off. Like, it genuinely upset me, because other countries, our greatest ally, now the Gulf states, seem to want us to go in here and to like ruffle feathers in Iran. And a lot of folks here in the country, less than 1%, volunteered to serve. And now we're possibly being volunteered, asked to send more people, who a lot of which joined the military for the free education, to get themselves out of a legal bind, because they have heritage or legacy that have done it before, or because they just don't know what they want to do when they grow up, to be expended to be the person that's going to have to go out and do that stuff. That's a tough sell. If that story is true, that is a tough sell, to ask that we are the ones that go through and do that fight. And I'm seeing rumors that lead me to believe that some of these countries do want us to do the ground forces. The other day, I saw a report that says, for the first time, Israel is considering to allow the U.S. to open military bases on their soil. That will be a first. That kind of drew my attention. Then I saw this story that talks about the president is thinking about asking Gulf states to pay for this conflict. And I'm like, why the hell would they pay? Well, if this story is true, that they're pushing that they want us to do this fight, it would make sense that we would ask to pay. Then I'm also seeing stories that the president is thinking about closing down this operation, even if the Strait of Hormuz is still partially closed, meaning that it would take a major operation, probably us all over again, to go reopen that shit. Because if prices of barrels of oil reaches $200 a barrel, we can't just leave that shit closed, bro. It would be a strategic L. Is that if all we did at the end of this war is reopen the Strait of Hormuz and it took the blood of some of my brethren, it would be one of the biggest strategic L's, in my opinion, that this country has ever done. Because before the war started, the strait was open and Iran was only making $47 a barrel. Now the strait is closed. They're making over $100 a barrel, and they're basically a troll at a toll bridge demanding such and such $1 million per ship. They won't disclose how much they're doing per ship to let certain vessels, mostly Chinese and Indian vessels, to move on through the strait. So at the end of this, if all we achieve is reopening the Strait of Hormuz, that of which was open before we all started this, and we try to celebrate it as a W, bro, it would be just nothing that I thought would equal America first, as in spending billions of dollars and right now 13 lives, probably more, on something that was already open. Diplomacy is the way that we go with this, boys. Diplomacy is the way we go with this. We are going to end up having to do a little bit of horse trading. Whether, I don't know, I know what their demands are in Iran. They want us to close all our doggone bases. They want reparations. They want us to freaking do all sorts of crap. Probably not going to do any of that stuff, right? But whenever you lay out the things that you want, you drop the anchor in the sand. It's the first rule of negotiations. And America has dropped the anchor in the sand by naming our objectives publicly. And so now we can come together through diplomacy and not hubris or pride and possibly get this thing wrapped up. But now we have 20% more troops in the region than we normally have. Out of that 20%, there's a heavy additional amount of infantry related troops than we would normally have in that area. Of course, there's always a QRF force that's attached with the Marine Corps. There's always some type of special operators we don't know about in the area, but we've plussed up our equipment. We plussed up our troops, now more than 50,000 in the area. And we just had a $700 million aircraft destroyed, and that was sitting on one of our bases in Saudi Arabia. And it's just looking like the Iranian people don't care how much you starve them, how much they're not able to see. They're just going to keep on doing their thing. So it does lead me to believe that if we want to get back to focusing on stuff where we can drive down inflation, maybe prevent the Fed from raising interest rates, so that, hey, in a few months, I was hoping to get Mrs. X another car. All of our vehicles are paid off. I wanted to get a 4-year loan with a stupid low interest rate and pay it off as quickly as possible. But if the Fed doesn't drop interest rates and the cost for one bank to borrow money from another one, those banks won't drop interest rates, and we won't feel that on mortgages and car loans, et cetera, et cetera. Even if they do drop it, it takes sometimes months, weeks or months for us to feel any type of drop of interest rates from the Fed. And if inflation remains sky high, if it continues to rise like it is right now, the things that we're able to move with our dollars become less and less. Cost of fertilizer rising, the cost of fuel rising, the cost of anything that has to do with petroleum, especially if the shit is made in China, is going to begin to rise. We're already seeing stuff from the South Korean president where it says what keeps him up at night is the pending energy crisis that everyone is just sleepwalking into. And I tend to agree that we are sleepwalking into an energy crisis. Doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, independent. I deem myself to be an independent, kind of more leaning towards libertarian myself. You should contact your congressperson, your congressman, your senator, whoever. Just let them know. Voice your opinion. Doesn't matter what their party is. Whether you agree or disagree on ground troops going into Iran. And I'm telling you this because even if you're disagreeing with the words that come out of my mouth, let your senator or your congressperson know it. I mean, you would be in the vast minority if you want ground troops to go in, especially if you've never served or if you don't know anybody to serve. I don't know, maybe you're a neocon. Maybe you think we need to go in there and get that uranium and get that oil, baby. Or maybe you kind of lean towards me, which is we need to de-escalate. The Houthis have jumped in. The strait the southern part of the Red Sea is at jeopardy. The Suez Canal is at jeopardy. Any vessels in the Red Sea, now they can possibly reach up to the Mediterranean more easily. We got the Gulf of Aden that we have to worry about. The Gulf of Oman we have to worry about. We got to worry about the Persian Gulf, Arabian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz. So much stuff to think about. And we're just slow walking into WW3. And I don't know why. I'm not sure why we're doing all this. And now other countries are asking us to possibly be the ground forces that makes this thing happen. Mind you, the Army just raised the enlistment age to 42. Previously, you topped off in like your mid 30s, 35 or whatever. And the Department of the Army says, oh, we're just doing this to align ourselves with the Coast Guard and with the Space Force. What? Some of the, the newest branch, the Space Force and the Coast Guard, one of our old dogs, but they're not even part of the DOD. So we're aligning ourselves with what? So who's to follow next? Is the Marine Corps next? Is the Navy next? Air Force, et cetera, et cetera. I predict that if we go ground force, first thing that you're going to notice is stop loss. If you're about to get out, if you're scheduled to get out, they're going to stop loss you if we go with ground forces. X, what's a stop loss? I think I saw the movie Stop Losses. If you have a scheduled separation day, other than probably like med retirement, even though I think they could stop loss med retirement, but regular retirement or just a regular old separation day. Hell, maybe you're getting the big chicken dinner. They can stop loss you and just keep deploying your ass. That's the first line. And then we start to get more aggressive with the recruiting habits. My uncle joined the Marine Corps in the late 90s or actually right after 9/11 without a high school diploma. In the Marine Corps, they helped him get a GED. That's a requirement you can't do nowadays, but we could get back there. We can get back to the days of easing old marijuana restriction convictions on your record, easing the requirement for having a high school diploma, easing facial tattoos and maybe beards. Maybe we'll get to dreadlocks. Maybe I can go in as I stand right now. And then once we get past that, the volunteer force, then we start to take a look at the selective service. We take a look at the possibility of a draft. And we have had drafts in multiple iterations since our country's history. The very first war that we did, the Revolutionary War, there was a draft. We've had a draft in World War II, although in World War II, a lot of young men were falling all over themselves to go in that war, but there was a draft in World War II. That draft just literally never was turned off, and it carried over into the Korean War. Then that was officially ended, and then we had another draft that you all know about, which was Vietnam. Oh, by the way, I skipped World War I. There was a draft for that as well. So GWOT was the only major conflict that we did not have a draft for. And we didn't have it because President Bush thought it is a midterm year. If we have a draft, they would get slaughtered in the midterms. And so for political reasons, they chose not to do a draft, but they just leaned easier on the requirements to actually join the armed forces. I'm telling you now, stop loss, easing recruitment restrictions, draft. I don't want us to be the force that does it. I don't want you to think that you voted for one thing or you voted for another thing, and now next thing you know, your cousin or you is going to be going back down the hell. Maybe they'll tell my ass to get back out there. X, and you drop 20 pounds, cut your hair, get your ass back out there. You have an expertise you did in the Marine Corps, where when I was in the Marine Corps, there was only 155 of us that did my MOS. I don't think that number's going up a lot. Out of almost, at the time when I was in, it was almost 190,000 Marines, and 155 of us did my MOS. That number probably has not grown by a lot. So is there a possibility you see my old ass get back up there? Yeah, I'm under 42. You never know. That being said, what do you think? You like other countries telling us you should be the ones to lay down the blood for some stuff that, I don't know, 6,000, 7,000 miles away from your country? You down with that? Are you down with Cuba being next? Are you down with the whole northern or western hemisphere being something we have to take care of once we wrap up with Iran? I would love to know what your comments down below. First time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.